Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with New Mutants number 14. Now, from what I understand of this issue, after talking to my local comic shop, this is the first time that Magik joins the New Mutants. So this is Sim on the cover that they're fighting, and this comic, really good read. There are some hokey moments, but it's kind of the framing device of what's really going on. Now it's called Do You Believe in Magic? The print date was April 1984, and we see this the soul ornament that Belasco has given Illyana in the miniseries that we're currently going over. This is shortly after that, so we'll eventually finish it. But before we even start talking about this, let's go over who made this book. This is Chris Claremont writing, Sal Buscema penciling, Tom Mandrake finisher, Glynis Wine colorist, Tom Orzanowski doing the lettering, Louise Jones, who we know as Louise Simonson's editor, and Jim Shooter boss. And they were this book, The New Mutants, were created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. So an all-star cast. I mean, Sal Buscema, that is impressive. You know, you want to see him or I believe his son John Buscema on a lot of newer stuff. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if either are still alive at this point in history. But anyway, what really makes this book shine is the inner turmoil of Illyana. She says, I was younger than 7, a baby. Today, barely a year later, I'm 15. Half my life was spent in limbo, Belasco's magical domain, where the normal rules of time don't apply. For me, their years passed, while on Earth, only seconds. She wants to return home, but she's like, how do I explain to my parents that I'm full grown now? How do I tell them that their daughter has become a demon sorcerer? I'd give my soul to be where I was a year ago, if I had a soul to give. And it is heavy stuff right off the cuff of this book. So that we see where Illyana's mindset is. She's staying at the Institute because she doesn't really have anywhere else to go, so she wants to be close to her brother and, of course, Kitty Pryde, who understands what happened to her. But she's not letting on about everything. All they know is she went to Limbo and she came back and she's older. She has not told anybody of the things that she had to endure while she was there. So we get a moment of levity. It starts snowing, and it says Xavier lets the class out, the New Mutants out early to enjoy it. And check this out. It says Professor Xavier does have a heart. He just prefers to keep it hidden. Back then, yes. Not so much now in the Dawn of X books, as we just saw what we went over in Way of X, how everyone's just not the same, and that's why I call them pod mutants, because they're not the characters that we knew from this era. And so another thing that I like here is how there's this innocence lost on Illyana, and then we kind of see the lightheartedness of the New Mutants, who, even though they've gone through some tragedy, they've found solace in one another. And then there's the new one, Armara, who this is kind of an earlier appearances of her, Magma. And so she's feeling a little out of place. It says, Amara's my age, from a fabulous lost city above the headwaters of the Amazon River. She's the newest arrival. And so she probably feels kind of like how I do. I feel alien, like I don't belong here. So you can kind of see the sad look on both of their faces. And so we kind of see everyone sort of kind of playing a little bit in a sense, like Danny tries to cheer Armara up. And it kind of turns into a joke with Roberto. And then I like how they color her, you see the vibrant yellows of Rain and Armara and Danny playing within the snow. And then we get the foreground of this shadowed blue of Illyana. She goes, they laugh so easily. Well, I've forgotten how to cry. I want to play, but I don't know how to ask. She's saying how the only people she finds comfort in, like Kitty, who was accepted her with no questions asked, is off on a mission with the X-Men. So here she's just feeling isolated. And so there's an idea that the New Mutants want to do, because they kind of see that Professor X is kind of seeming sort of grim and broody. And like, well, maybe there's a way we can cheer him up. So what are they doing? I don't want to give that away, but I like how here in the shadows we see Sim, who's kind of the right-hand man of Belasco. And he goes, "There's the girl. I've come a long way for you, Illyana. I don't mind waiting a little longer." Now, one character that I do miss from this era is Stevie Hunter. You know, she was the dance teacher for Kitty, later the New Mutants, and she helps out a lot. I don't know what happened to her. Let me know down in the comments on what issue or whatever has happened to her, so I can kind of see where she kind of ended up. And then we get these cameos of Doug Ramsey, who's not part of the New Mutants yet. So it feels a little out of place. I could see where people back in the day be like, wait a minute, why is this dude just kind of boom, boom, in and out of the panels? Again, that's kind of Chris Claremont's way in this issue of doing sort of a segue. And if y'all remember our review of New Mutants number 2, the mall that they go to is still under construction from their attack with the Sentinels. And so Illyana kind of starts to second guess herself. She goes, I wish that everyone's happy mood was infectious. But, you know, she's still has a lot of issues that she needs to deal with, and she's not really talking to anybody or facing them the way she should. And so repercussions are happening at home while everyone's gone. Now, as everyone returns from the mall, they're like, this place seems a little too eerily quiet. So Illyana says, well, Professor X can't scan my thoughts, so let me go see what's going on, because there's something that's supposed to be happy that's happening, but I'm not going to give that away. Now, as she's walking in, Mara says, she reminds me of Selene. If I'm reading this correctly, Selene is part of the Externals, those like immortal mutants. And Danny's like, the demon mutant who preyed on people now in Nova Roma, who slew my mother and tried to steal Danny's soul. I'm sorry, that's Mara talking, not Stevie. And then Stevie actually does. She goes, Illyana isn't like that. And then, you know, I love Roberto, but he sometimes needs to learn to shut his trap. He's like, can you be certain, Stevie? Sometimes even the X-Men seem afraid of her. So again, we kind of see her shrouded in shadows. They speak softly, but I hear every word. I want to hurl their suspicions back in their faces. Who are they to judge me? How dare they? But my anger cannot hide the essential truth of Amara's words. I have more, much more in common with Selene than any of the New Mutants. So as I was saying, because she hasn't really explained to anything what's happened to people, she has to face off with Sim. A battle ensues, and because of Danny's powers, how she's able to touch someone's mind and pull their worst fears into like a tangible image. So Sim is obviously afraid of Belasco because it's his leader. But he says, after all, if you serve the Dark Lord, you must therefore be the sworn enemy of his dark child, Illyana. So again, this is how people kind of start to see what's happened to Illyana in a sense, like kind of some of the lies that she's trying to hide are cracking. And things come to a head where Illyana draws her soul sword, and some very poignant moment happens between her and Sim. I don't want to give it away. I want you guys to read this. But she ends up having to wipe Stevie's mind because she says, she's like, I don't understand. Are the X-Men dead? And she's like, Illyana, what have you become? You really don't want to know, Stevie. So even though the book kind of ends on a happy note, there's a lot of heaviness going on in Illyana's mind and in her soul. And a lot of that does get laid out later down the road, but because, she actually gets a moment of a reprieve with Professor X here, I think this is how he eventually encourages her to join the New Mutants. And as we've gone over in other issues, like issue 18, which I believe was the first part of the Demon Bear saga, we kind of see how everyone sort of doesn't trust her, but nonetheless they rely on her. And there's also a kind of a catharsis and a kind of a closing of what everyone thinks of Illyana in the Demon Bear saga, which if you guys want to read, we've gone over. I'll throw cards throughout this review for you to check out. So, New Mutants 14. The framing device that they use about going to the mall, it's a little hokey, but the heaviness that focuses on Illyana and what she's going through and what's happened to her, this book is excellent in that regard. Chris Claremont really fleshes it out from what he did in the miniseries and how it's affected her now that she's back in her own dimension. And there's some interesting things, like I said, with Doug Ramsey, that happen at the end with Kitty. That's why I don't want to give it away. I want you guys to read this book. If you've enjoyed it, please first and foremost support your local comic shop, pick up a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little mutant bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel. We love talking with y'all and hearing your feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.